The payment pause and interest waiver on federal student loans has been in effect for quite some time, maybe even longer than we realized. So is it going to be extended again for the 6th time? Inquiring minds want to know. Here's what we found out. Hey guys, it's Justine with the College Investor, Investing in Personal Finance for Millennials. Let's talk about this payment pause and interest waiver because we have all been enjoying not being required to make any payments. There's no interest accruing on those federal student loans, and so it gives you the flexibility to either pay those down while there's no interest or refocus and shift that debt payment to something else in your personal finances. Now, at the time of this recording, that waiver is set to expire on May 1st, 2022. And that means that this pause, this waiver, has been in effect for 26 months, just over 2 years, and that accounts for roughly $125 billion of waived interest. Okay, so let's ask this question. Can the payment pause be extended further? Well, according to the HEROES Act of 2003, any kind of waiver or modification to this type of program can only be approved in connection with a national emergency. And because the pandemic was declared a national emergency, we're still able to see those extensions of the student loan payment and interest waiver again and again because we are still in this national emergency. Another thing to note is that there's also a limited public service loan forgiveness waiver that's extended through October 31st of 2022. And because this modification was allowed because we have a national emergency, it may indicate that the Biden administration will also push and extend this waiver one more time for everybody with federal student loans until October 31st of 2022. But this really is all up to President Biden and whether or not he will continue this for a 6th time. In fact, according to a CNBC student loan survey, 29% of borrowers believe that repayment will resume on May 1st, and 26% believe the president will extend the payment pause again. 28% believe some student loans will be forgiven, and 14% believe that all student loans will be forgiven. I don't see that happening, but that's just me. Also, some other interesting statistics that came out of this survey is that 19% of Republicans support forgiveness of all student loans compared with 43% of independents and 46% of Democrats. There are also some divisions based off of demographics. More women than men support student loan forgiveness. Plus, Black and Hispanic survey respondents are more likely to support student loan forgiveness than white and Asian respondents. Younger respondents are more likely to support student loan forgiveness, 45% of Gen Z and 43% of millennials versus 32% of Gen X and 23% of baby boomers. Plus, low-income respondents and borrowers who owe more than others that don't are more likely to be in favor of student loan forgiveness. That makes sense, right? Like if you're the person who's going through this and it's really difficult for you to pay off those loans, you would definitely be in support of some sort of forgiveness program. All this to be said, the most recent extension of the payment and interest pause really was driven by politics and not policy. A lot of people thought that student loans and employment would get back to pre-pandemic norms by the end of 2021. In a lot of ways, it has kind of returned to pre-pandemic levels. The unemployment rate for January 2022 was just at 4%, which was the same as it was in January 2019 before the pandemic. Also, deferment, forbearance, delinquency, and default are all at the pre-pandemic normal rates. So with all this normalization coming into place and seeing, hey, like borrowers actually can get back to making their student loan payments, it does kind of make you question whether or not we're actually going to see a 6th extension. Though with the pandemic and the recent Omicron variant that popped up, there's always going to be a little bit of that hesitation because we just don't know what this pandemic is going to do and how long it's going to last with these new variants popping up. And again, it's a House divided. Some Democrats really want to see another extension. Some want just a blanket student loan cancellation for everybody. And then there are others who are just not into it at all. In fact, Representative Virginia Foxx of North Carolina said that President Biden's latest extension is a troubling trend toward blanket student loan forgiveness, which would be a massive mistake with major consequences for borrowers and taxpayers. Now, a broad student loan forgiveness can only be authorized by Congress. This cannot go through just a lone executive order from President Biden. There really has to be approval from Congress. And who knows if we will ever see that happen. So the path forward may be based off of some political decisions, and that really kind of is unfortunate because I think the decision should be based off of how many people, how many borrowers this actually impacts. Okay, so what can you do as a borrower right now? Well, we know in fact that this extension is going to end May 1st, 2022. There's a couple of ideas that you can play around with. If you have no emergency fund and you have high interest debt, perhaps you focus on those as a goal first. Paying down that high interest debt while this debt is just dormant and on a freeze until May, focus on setting aside extra money for an emergency fund. God forbid you lose your job, you experience an accident, your cell phone breaks. You have the funds set aside that prevents you from going into debt. You'll also want to focus on high interest debt such as credit cards because we know that interest is accruing very rapidly, whereas the student loan debt is just dormant, and you can focus on that when the time comes. You can also sock away cash so that when the payments come back into play, you already have some cushion to kind of ease yourself back into making those monthly payments again. Next, you'll want to focus on your budget. Know exactly what income is coming in, what expenses are going out, including your debt payments. You'll want to make a written list of all of your debt and all of your fixed and fund expenses so you know exactly what to calculate and budget for accordingly. I don't think you can really bank on broad student loan forgiveness just yet, and I don't think you can bank on there being truly an extension until it happens. So always plan for worst case scenario and hope for the best. Maybe it will happen and then you'll be that much further ahead because you're planning for worst case scenario. If you are needing more assistance and financial relief with your student loans, be sure to check out our free resources all about student loan debt and how you can advocate for yourself at thecollegeinvestor.com, and we'll catch you in the next one.